Hello everybody and welcome to the Belly Baby Summit. I am so excited to have you here. If this is your first time with us at the Belly Baby Summit, welcome. If not, we're excited to have you back. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Karen Bagley and I am the owner of Significant Moments Photography. My studio is based right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and I specialize in maternity portraiture, motherhood and or newborn, and underwater portraiture. Now today, what I'm going to be talking about with you is how to become a one light wonder. Now before we get into this subject, we're going to watch just a brief introduction video. If you've seen this video before, I want you to pay particular attention to all of my sessions and how many lights I actually use. And don't forget, at the end of that video, all of my social media portals are up at the very end on a slide. I want you to take note of those, write those down, because I want you to stay in contact with me. That's very important to me. All right, you guys, enjoy. Okay guys, let's jump right in on how you can become a one light wonder. Now before I get into the principles of lighting, I really want to talk about us as creatives. So many times we're comparing ourselves to other photographers. We see their gear, we see their lighting setup, and we think that we need that exact same setup to produce amazing images. And that's just not necessarily the case. Not that there's anything wrong with using multiple lights, but I want to show you today how you can produce amazing images using just one light. So what we're going to do today is we are going to go over a few principles that's going to help you know how to use that one light regardless of where you are, outside, in studio, to produce amazing portraiture. So let's get started with that first principle. Okay, everybody, let's jump right in. So principle number one with lighting. The larger your light source is, the softer the light will be. The smaller your light source is, the harsher your light will be. Now, what exactly does that mean? If you have a large light on your subject, what you can expect is to see the transition from light to shadow very gradually change on your subject. Now on the other end of the spectrum, if you have a very small light source, you can expect to see a very rigid change between light and shadows. So when we think about soft light, what comes to mind? We think about newborns, possibly a soft maternity portrait. Then on the other hand, if we're thinking about a small, harsher light, we think maybe of senior portraits, something a little more edgy. So the question is, how do we manage having a large light source or having a small light source? This is where modifiers come into play. So what I would like to do is show you just a brief video of some of my favorite modifiers that I like to use both in studio and outdoors. Time. So the very first one that I want to talk about is my 5-foot Profoto Octabox. When I pick this thing up, you guys will see it is huge. So what type of light do you think it's going to give off? Obviously, because it's a large light source, it's going to give off a softer light. Now the next one that I love to use, and I use this one for a more edgier feel to my maternity portraits, is my Profoto 1x4 strip box. Now again, because the light source is smaller, that's going to make that light very, very harsh. Now the third modifier that I like to use is my Westcott Rapid Beauty Dish. Now this one I use on location because even though it's a smaller light source, it's harsh and I need that harsh light to fight against the sun. If I was to use it in studio, I would pull it very close to my subject. Okay, moving right along, principle number 2. Inverse square law. Now I know what you're thinking, that's a ton of math and it's a very deep subject, and you are 100% right. For me, I am not a math person, so I needed this broken down to me in simple terms, so I'm going to do the same for you. So let's put it this way. The closer your light source is, the quicker the light falls. So what does that mean? Let's say you have a 3-foot octave very close to your subject. That light is not going to reach all the way to the background behind them. Okay? Now, to the reverse side of that, the further your light source is, the further your light will carry or will fall. So if you were to keep your subject in the same place, but move your light back, that backdrop would be lit completely different. Now, why does this matter? This is one of the most amazing things because you can alter the look of a backdrop simply by moving your subject closer or further from your light, or by moving your light closer or further from your subject. The best way to show this is through a quick little video of a demonstration that I did with one of my clients, turning a white backdrop to gray because I moved her and I moved the light further away from each other. Now in this demonstration, I'm going to show you what happens when the light falls quickly, which again means your subject or your light are going to be closer together. Now you can see we have white walls in the studio, and you notice I pulled my subject away from the wall closer to the light. Now what do you think is going to happen? Is she going to be on a perfectly white backdrop, or is it going to be darker? How did the light fall? Because she is closer to the light source. Right there we can see it turned gray. So we just saw what happens when light falls quickly. It turns an entirely white backdrop gray because your subject is closer to the light source. Now what if we pulled our subject back, creating more distance between them and the light source? Then that light is not going to fall so quickly, and it's going to light the backdrop much, much better than it would if they were further away. Let's demonstrate that. Okay, now in this demonstration, you're going to see me motion for my subject to get much closer to the wall. Now what's going to happen here, because she's a little bit further away from that light source, now again, you can do either or. You can move your light source or you can move your subject. In this case, I just moved my subject and had her come closer to the wall. Now what's going to happen because she's closer to that wall? All of that light is going to carry right past her, creating a white image, a nice white backdrop. Okay, moving right along. We've already covered so much and we're not even to principle 3 yet. I'm so excited. So right out of the gate, we have discussed the size of your light source. We have discussed the distance of your light source and how that affects the light falling on your background or on your subject. The third principle that I want to talk about is angles. But before we get there, I want to address a very popular question that I get, which is, Karen, I have no idea where to put my strobe. Where do I start it at? Where do I place it right in front of them? How close? How far away? So I have a general rule of thumb for you to remember. The size of your modifier in diameter, okay, so if you have a 3-foot diameter modifier, you want that light to be about 3 foot from your subject. So whatever the diameter is of your modifier, that's how many feet away from your subject you want to start with your light. Now, of course, that's not always going to be exactly right on, but that's a general rule of thumb that's going to help you out a ton. Okay, moving right along into principle 3, the angle of where your light is. This is one of my very favorites because you can get so creative with angles. And we're not going to talk about all of them because there's way too many, but I want to talk about top 3. So we have split lighting. Split lighting is where your light source is almost directly to the side of your subject. And just like it sounds, you're going to have almost right down the middle, light on one side, shadow on the other side. Super dramatic. Then if we keep coming around to about a 45-degree angle, we get to the second angle, which is most commonly known as Rembrandt. Okay? Now Rembrandt lighting is where we get that nice little triangle right under the eye. Don't worry, I'm going to show you examples so you can truly get a good grip on all this because it's a lot of information, I know. But that Rembrandt lighting kind of doesn't necessarily evenly fall, but it leaves a little triangle of shadow right here, but it lights overall pretty well. It's still more on the dramatic side of things, not necessarily a softer portrait. Then the third is Paramount lighting. Paramount lighting is where the light is directly in front of your subject. You're going to have nice soft light. It's going to wrap evenly right around your subject. Now, let's look at some images so you can fully grasp what I'm talking about. Okay, so for this image, we used our split light technique. Now, even though the subject was not facing me directly and she was facing the light source, it's still split light. Why so? Because it's only lighting the front portion of her, it is not lighting the back portion of her. Let me show you what I mean in this demonstration. So you can see here, she's facing that strip box almost completely head on. And then once the train was dropped, you can see that light that fired, it did not carry through and light the back. So it's very much so split lighting. Okay, the next image we're looking at now is the Rembrandt technique. So as you can see on my client's face, right under the right eye, she has a little triangle of light there. You can see how the shadows kind of make a triangle. That's what Rembrandt lighting is, which is also a very popular, very well-known lighting technique. Now, how did we get this shot? Let's take a look at the demo. Okay, so you see about how much space I have between the light and my client, my subject. And you see it's at a 45-degree angle to her left because I want that light to kind of cast over and not completely have her other side of her face in shadow, but I also don't want it to be completely lit either, which is where that beautiful Rembrandt triangle comes into play. Moving right along, the next image that we're going to look at is our Paramount lighting setup. Now again, this is where your lighting is fully covering your subject. The light is straight on to them. And let's just see what that looks like in a demonstration. So you can see here, I still have my light about 5 foot away from my subject. It's not quite fully in front of her just so I have room to be able to photograph her. I have to physically get under the octabox, but I want it almost as centered as possible so that I can get that nice, even, wrapped light all the way around my subject, which we know is Paramount lighting. Okay, so we have gone over 3 principles that's going to help you become a one light wonder. The first is the size of your light source. The second is the distance of your light source. The third is your angle of your light source. So really and truthfully, you can see with one light, you have so many possibilities. But where else could we use one light? So for me, I use one light when I go on location. So not only do we have all of these different combinations that we can do in studio, but we can also apply that to on location. The beautiful part about it is that I'm not limited to have to shoot at the golden hour of the day, because now I have my one light to combat that super harsh sun. So now you know the tips to become a one light wonder. But before I end, I have just one extra surprise for you. One more way that you can use one light so that you can complete your one light wonder class. Okay, so what you just saw was a silhouette image. And yes, that was taken using just one light. Let's see how I did it. Okay, so as you can see in this demonstration, I moved my 5-foot octabox directly behind my client. So what happens when that light fires is it's completely backlighting her so that it leaves this beautiful silhouette. As this class comes to a close, I want to thank you so much for watching. There is so much information regarding light, and the most important thing that I want you to remember is you don't have to have a lot to create the most amazing portraits ever. Now you are a one light wonder. Now guys, please don't forget, follow me on social media if you have any questions for me whatsoever regarding lights or whatever it may be. I also have a Facebook group called Next Level Maternity. Please come join us if you want to learn more from me. And I hope you enjoyed this class, and I will see you later.